A kingdom's progress usually halts when its leadership becomes isolated. Our king wants to modernize his realm and secure his borders, but he is surrounded by a circle of advisors who offer nothing but rehearsed, empty advice. These men are highly educated, yet their primary skill is maintaining the status quo to protect their own salaries. Realizing that a breakthrough won't come from a room full of yes-men, the king leaves the palace. He takes his retinue into the wilderness, searching for any sign of a fresh perspective that hasn't been stifled by court politics. In the middle of the woods, they find a man sitting alone under a tree, talking animatedly to himself. He is laying out a detailed, wildly ambitious plan to clear the forest and replace it with a network of personal palaces. To the courtiers, he looks like a common madman, but the king is struck by the man's absolute, unshakable confidence, a quality his advisors lack. He decides to bring this madman back to court as an experiment, unknowingly testing whether elite intellectual plotting can survive against a force of pure, oblivious luck. The impact of this decision is immediate. By stopping to engage with the man in the woods, the king's procession took a detour that allowed them to bypass a heavily armed ambush waiting for them on the main road. The king interprets this as a stroke of strategic genius, convinced the man sensed the danger. The courtiers, however, see an outsider who just disrupted their influence. They view him as a dangerous variable that needs to be removed. Rather than confronting him directly, the advisors lean into their perceived strength, the ability to engineer complex, intellectual conspiracies. They begin weaving a web designed to trap the newcomer in his own perceived ignorance. This sets the stage for a collision between two worlds. On one side, a group of highly calculated experts. On the other, a man whose only defense is his total innocence of the game being played around him. The courtiers launch their first strike by exploiting the man's naivete. They pull him aside and explain that ancient court tradition requires the king to be physically slapped across the face to officially begin the day's business. As the king takes his throne the next morning, the man marches forward and, with total sincerity, delivers a forceful blow to the monarch's head. The strike sends the royal crown flying. It strikes the floor, tumbles open, and a venomous scorpion crawls out from the inner padding. The king realizes that putting on that crown would have been fatal. Instead of being led to the gallows, the man is praised for his supposed sixth sense and is rewarded with a palace of his own. The courtiers are left stunned. Their attempt to humiliate the man served as the exact mechanism required for his first promotion. Desperation sets in. The advisors tell the man that if he pulls the king's chair out from under him as he sits, the king will find the prank so hilarious that he will grant him half the kingdom. The man waits for the moment the king begins to lower himself onto the heavy throne, then suddenly jerks the chair backward.
The king stumbles, and the massive seat crashes directly to the ground. But as the throne falls, everyone sees that one of its rear legs had been secretly splintered and was about to collapse. By pulling the chair away, the man saved the king from a dangerous fall onto the broken wood. The king is now convinced this man is a guardian angel. He officially names him General of the Royal Army, placing the nation's entire military under his command. This is a clear feedback loop. A malicious trap enters the system, fails, and outputs a promotion, triggering a more extreme trap. The courtiers have inadvertently created an engine accelerating the man they wish to destroy, providing friction for him to climb higher. The advisors finally resort to treason. They coordinate with a neighboring king to provoke a border skirmish, hoping their new general will be killed in the chaos of battle. When the armies meet, the general ignores all military protocol. He wanders into the middle of the field and calls out the enemy king for a one-on-one talk. As the enemy king approaches, a wild lion leaps from the tall grass. The general lunges forward, intercepting and slaying the beast before it strikes. The general then helps the shaken enemy king to his feet and asks for a total pardon for everyone involved in the conflict. He doesn't see enemies. He only sees people who need to get along. This final act of oblivious bravery results in a lasting peace treaty and a marriage alliance between the two kingdoms. The courtier's ultimate betrayal has secured the very future the king first dreamed of. With the borders open, the kingdoms united, and the general married to the king's daughter, the old guard is left without leverage.
they have plotted themselves into total irrelevance. This diagram illustrates the conclusion reached by one of the elder courtiers. The tangled web represents human conspiracy, the attempt to control every variable. But the straight vector cutting through it is kismet, or destiny. When a specific path is chosen by fate, human conspiracies function as the stepping stones for the person they were meant to destroy. The very effort used to pull someone down becomes the force that lifts them up. Human intellect is limited to the pieces it can see on the board. Destiny, however, is the force that owns the board itself. The courtiers suffered from a state known as hasad, an envy that consumes the person feeling it. It is a psychological trap where you become so preoccupied with an opponent's position that you stop improving your own. History shows a recurring pattern where sincerity and pure intentions eventually outlast complex schemes. Jealousy is a dead-end strategy because it relies on someone else's failure rather than your own growth. Energy spent obsessing over the status or the unearned success of others is energy stolen from your own progress. You cannot scale a destination that wasn't written for you, and you cannot block one that was. The most effective way to navigate the world is to focus on your own truth and your own efforts. If a path is meant for you, no amount of plotting from the shadows can prevent you from reaching the end of it.